Welcome everyone. I'm Mark Anderson. I'm TechX Director at the Net Zero Technology Centre, and I'm delighted to be here for the Clean Energy Startup Pitch Battle. I'd like to welcome everyone here in the room, and also those who have joined on LinkedIn and on our Hop-In programme. We've got a really exciting programme ahead of us this afternoon. But before I tell you about that, I'd just like to explain how we got here. So in July and August, 29 clean energy startups from around the world submitted their 3-minute pitch videos to us. And in September, those were uploaded on our website. And over a 4-week period, the global public voted on those startups. We had 3,400 votes. And the top 5 are here today, so you will be hearing from them. At the same time, we had an expert panel of judges who assessed those startups, and the top 5 from that assessment, less any overlaps, also came to the final. So today we have 10 finalists from around the world, and you can see them here on the screen. And I think you'll notice that the striking thing, perhaps, is how dispersed they are geographically. It's fantastic diversity, and we're really excited to hear from each of them today. So what will happen is that you'll hear their pitch live for 5 minutes, and then there will be a 5-minute Q&A with our judges, and you, the audience, here in Glasgow and wherever you are in the world dialing in, you will be able to also ask questions of the startups. So we will hear from 5 startups. We will then have a short break. We will hear from the final 5 startups and then have a break. And then we will announce the winner, second and third placed finalists. So without any more ado, I'd like to introduce our judging panel. You see in front of you. So chair of the judges, we have Martin Gilbert, who's also chair of the Net Zero Technology Centre. Welcome, Martin. We then have Francesca Brady, who's CEO of Air Rated. We have Yewande Akinola, who's Ambassador for Clean Growth and Infrastructure for Innovate UK. We have Gillian King, who's Senior Director Operations, OGCI Climate Investments. And we have Christian Arnaud, who's CEO of Pawprint. So I'd like to welcome you all warmly and thank you in advance for coming here and for your work. So without any more ado, I'm now going to hand over to Miss Kate Forbes. Kate Forbes is Cabinet Secretary for Finance and the Economy, and she's kindly agreed to speak to us, and we're going to hear from her now.
Well, thanks very much to the Net Zero Technology Centre for hosting this exciting pitch battle event to showcase innovative ideas from Scotland and around the world. Congratulations to all the finalists. The startups in the spotlight today are a hugely encouraging example of the generation of new inventors required to address real-world challenges when it comes to climate change. In Scotland, we've committed to end our contribution to climate change within a generation in a way that is just and fair for everyone. In a net zero world, we see industry, innovation and academic partners at the heart of a high value add, high productivity economy that focuses on premium products and services and is resilient to the impacts of climate change. The TechX Clean Energy Accelerator will play a vital role in realising that vision by attracting the most diverse and innovative clean energy startups to grow and thrive in our entrepreneurial ecosystem. Net zero is an innovation challenge, and I see that reflected in the technologies on display here today, from trailblazing physical design solutions to cutting-edge digitalisation. There's no question that entrepreneurship is a critical component of a net zero energy sector, and that is reflected in government policy. The implementation of the Logan Review, together with other policy interventions, will see the creation of a new infrastructure for high-growth entrepreneurship in Scotland. These include tech scalers, an AI hub and a national network of 5G centres, all complemented by regional infrastructure investments such as the Aberdeen Growth Deal, which has seen it achieve gigabit city status. Our recently published Global Capital Investment Plan seeks to achieve alignment between Scotland's investment needs and the supply of internationally mobile capital. We recognise that public sector investment alone will never be enough to respond to the challenges of the 21st century. So we're working with investors who share our aim to address these grand challenges that we face in Scotland and abroad, to build the whole system, targeting public sector support where it's needed to create private sector opportunity. I expect this to feature prominently in the Scottish Government's forthcoming transformational economic strategy. We're already making investments in key net zero markets. For example, we're investing £62 million through the Energy Transition Fund to provide a package that will support our energy sector to transition and grow. We're also investing £180 million in the Emerging Energy Technology Fund to support innovation in key energy technologies like carbon capture, utilisation and storage and hydrogen. We're also supporting the National Energy Skills Accelerator in Aberdeen to invest in individuals and companies during their transition from oil and gas and other sectors to benefit from the opportunities that will create long-term sustainable employment in new energy sectors. Our just transition to net zero necessitates the creation of new green businesses and jobs. The commercial opportunities are vast. At its heart, though, a just transition is about tackling entrenched inequalities and capturing economic and social opportunities, all whilst tackling climate change. Concerted efforts are required to ensure that the transition to net zero is just and inclusive, reducing existing inequalities rather than exacerbating them. Our Climate Emergency Skills Action Plan will contribute towards addressing these inequalities, recognising the distinct barriers faced by certain groups and supporting fair access to skills, to training and the jobs that flow from transition. Looking beyond COP26 and whatever agreement is reached this month, we can't yet imagine the technologies that will enable us to achieve our climate change targets. But our vision and ambition for the clean tech sector is clear. We want a just transition where innovative Scottish-based firms, their wider supply chains and our local communities understand and benefit from the deliberate shift needed. Thank you so much for your contribution to that vision.
And thank you very much for the Minister for her contribution. So I think now is an exciting time when we hear from the first startup who's pitching, I believe to be Mineral Carbonization International. Yes, over to you. We need some sound. No sound.
I am.
Great, we can hear you. Please start again. Sorry about that.
Sorry,
We can. Over to you. We're ready when you are.
Let's be ambitious when we think about a net zero 2050. With a growing population, we can be providing infrastructure, manufacturing, and energy to the masses, creating jobs and prosperous new industries, whilst also achieving our climate goals. Even with an aggressive transition to clean energy, our hard-to-abate industries like cement, steel, mining and manufacturing all need solutions to reduce and avoid CO2 emissions right now and throughout this century. And this is what MCI offers. My name is Sophia Hamblin-Wong from MCI. It's an Australian carbon technology platform that transforms CO2 into valuable materials. These materials are used by manufacturers of low carbon products such as glass, paper, plastics, cements and concretes, agriculture, and even consumer products like washing powders. Now, here's a negative emissions plasterboard made from industrial emissions. This block was carbon emissions in Australia just 2 weeks ago. This building block represents sustainable jobs and removed emissions and facilitates the circular carbon economy. We are at the forefront of a new technology sector called carbon utilization, or CCU. At MCI, we have a mission to lock away 1 billion tonnes of CO2 into products by 2040. Now, MCI uses a natural earth process of storing CO2 called weathering. Usually this happens over millions of years, but we've sped this up to minutes in our carbon plant. Our pilot plant here is running every day and producing these materials, and we've just secured $14.6 million from the Australian government to scale the technology into industrial demonstration. It's really exciting. Our process can integrate with CO2 from any industrial source or with direct air capture technology with very low purity CO2 and even direct flue gas. We use feedstocks that are rich in magnesium or calcium or industrial wastes like steel slags and mine tailings. Our carbon plants then transform the carbon dioxide and feedstocks into valuable materials. Now, many ask us, just how scalable is the technology? There are enough suitable feedstocks available to process all of the CO2 that has ever and will ever be emitted by fossil fuels. But of course, our focus is on finding the sites that provide the best economics to create profitable pathways to decarbonisation. Our carbon plants are designed to scale with industry as they seek to transition from immediate reductions in emissions to net zero. And as you can see from our commercialisation roadmap, we intend to partner with the global engineering sector and specialists to roll out a portfolio of carbon plants. Following this trajectory, by 2040, we are capable of absorbing a total of 1 billion tonnes of CO2. Now, partnerships really are key to our success. We are already working with some of the world's largest mining, construction, home care, and other companies to create profitable pathways to decarbonisation. And there is quite an opportunity to make a profit. The market size for CCU is estimated to be worth almost $6 trillion and MCI aims to be a leading player in the field. Now, MCI can help to decarbonise industries like steel and nickel and more, and they're all key inputs for a renewable transition. So if MCI's technology interests you, we are looking for new global partnerships. We're conducting also a significant capital raise in 2022 to fund our ambitious growth plan. And everyone can help us by following our growth and choosing circular carbon economy products. In a net zero 2050, we can and need to be solving many problems all at once. It's an ambitious vision, but exactly what the world needs right now. I'm here in Glasgow at COP26, showcasing at the pavilion. And I look forward to meeting some of you after this and showing you some of our building materials made from emissions. And I'll leave you finally with this illustration of a 1 million tonne per year carbon plant attached to a steelworks. It's by decarbonising these industries that we're going to reach our mission of removing 1 billion tonnes of CO2 and help the world to reach our climate goals. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Sophia. So over to the judges for any questions you may have.
Really exciting pitch. Thank you very much, Sophia. How would you describe the competitive landscape for what you're doing?
So I've been working in the field for the last 8 years, and at the beginning CCU was relatively small, but now the mineralization field has really exploded. I would say that there's key mineralization players in the US, in the UK, in Canada, and in the EU, all over the world. And so there's different players that are solving different problems in the steel industry, in the cement industry, and also in mining. So the field is really exciting, and there's been a lot of investment going on, particularly bringing technologies from technology readiness level 4 into 5, 6, and 7.
And just one follow-up question on that. Would you say you found a niche where you can really, become a global leader?
Yes, because the many other mineralization technologies, they focus on just decarbonizing cement or just focusing on waste remediation. But our platform is tailorable to different industrial sectors. So we can take a variety of flue gases. We can take NOx and SOx and different purities of CO2. We can take different amounts of industrial wastes like steel slags, mine tailings, and different other mineral feedstocks. And then that creates a variety of outputs that we can tailor to the markets. So if one scenario may be a steel plant with steel slags creating plasterboard, we can do that quite easily, but then we can equally tailor our technology to integrate to a cement plant creating cement products with a cement flue gas. So it is exciting, and it is it's niche, but the tailorability has been very key to our growth path.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was super. I wanted to find out what the response has been from the construction industry. Are they all super excited about it, or are you going to have to encourage them to be super excited?
So again, 8 years ago, the construction industry was much more resistant to innovation and change. But in the past 2 years in particular, there has been an explosion of innovation and insight into low carbon cements in particular. And as you know, there's a lot of opportunity for improvement when it comes to low carbon cements in particular. Now, we're working with maybe 5 of the larger cement companies on new formulations of products, and I expect to have some pretty big announcements shortly. And the innovation appetite is really coming along. And I'll have to say that about 3 weeks ago, I was in a seminar with Frans Timmerman from the EU, and he mentioned that he saw carbon capture and utilization and mineralization in particular to be a really exciting and emerging area that may be even as impactful as carbon capture and storage. Now, it's indications from policymakers like that say that the technology does have potential, which gives industry the confidence to make investments to create new products, and because policy settings will be supportive of that.
Thank you. We've got time for one more question. Gillian.
Hi, thanks for the pitch. Well done. It sounds like you've got pretty ambitious targets there with 1 billion tonnes of CO2. I'm just wondering what's been your biggest challenge to date?
Our biggest challenge is our competitor is business as usual. So getting companies to make investments and support our development is something that we need long-term, like more than 5-year windows worth of investment. We need patient investors. And there's something, in the innovation sector, there's the valley of death. But I've recently heard that in low emissions technologies, it's more like a canyon of death. And so investors are usually quite impatient, and they want 10 times.
So I think we're going to... Sorry, Sophia, we lost you there, but I think we're now out of time. I'd like to thank you so much, Sophia, for your pitch there. So I think we're now on to the next startup, which is CO2 Circular. Over to you.
Hi. My name is Mohammed. I'm a process design engineer in the Smart Duct team. I would like to start today by telling you a secret. There is $100 billion gold mine right above us for everyone. No one has ever laid hands on it yet. But before you think I'm crazy, allow me to explain. Human activities will emit CO2 and will continue to do so. Together with the 8 billion humans who have created colossal amount of emission points. Here's the fun fact. Industrial CO2 accounts for only 30% of the total global emissions. The other 70% comes from distributed sources, such as aviation, cars, shipping, and even agriculture, where it's impossible to capture the carbon dioxide source. So, to achieve a net zero society in 30 years without direct air capture is really an illusion. But is it only a problem, or is it also an opportunity? IPCC stated the following: all pathways that limit global warming to 1.5 Celsius project the need of direct CO2 removal in the order of 100 to 1,000 gigaton over the 21st century. Guess what? $100 billion can be generated out of thin air if only 1% of this 100 gigaton to be captured is utilized at a targeted price of $100 a ton. And that's the gold mine in the sky. The CO2 captured can be directly used in fizzy beverages, greenhouses, sequestration, or even converted to sustainable fuels and chemicals. So what we're waiting for? Let's vacuum clean the atmosphere by smart DAC. Think of a pine tree for a second. Do you know that 1 kilometer square of pine trees can absorb up to 1,250 tons of CO2 per year? But here's the deal breaker. At the same space, smart DAC can absorb, drumroll please, more than 500,000 tons of CO2. And that's the gold mine in the sky. Smart DAC, so to put things in perspective, smart DAC is 400 times more efficient than pine trees. So here where things get interesting. In 2019, the total CO2 emissions in the United Kingdom was estimated around 468 million metric tons. Guess what? In only 10 by 10 of area, 10 by 10 miles square, smart DAC can utilize these 468 million metric tons of CO2. And this area accounts for only 0.1% of the total land of the UK. So when this is doable for the United Kingdom, it's doable for the rest of the world. How the system works: using membrane gas absorption and membrane electrolysis regeneration, the smart DAC system separates the CO2 from the air, creating continuous absorption regeneration cycle. Our technology is unique and simple, and we are the first membrane-based direct air capture company in the world. Our technology is not limited to a certain chemical, fuel, or a waste stream, and we also do not dig down for single-use minerals. The smart DAC system, which is interesting, that can be completely powered by solar or wind, and we use a stable, safe, low-cost solvent, and at the same time, we even eliminated the need of fans by using wind, just natural wind, to lower the cost and energy consumption. And we also generate hydrogen and oxygen to be used for various purposes. Probably the most efficient and lowest direct air capture technology, potentially at below $100 a ton. We would like to connect. We also do, probably the most efficient and lowest direct air capture company at below $100 a ton. This brings me to the next point. The biggest obstacle to materialize the CO2 conversion, utilization, and sequestration technologies is the cost of the CO2 capture. What's interesting that smart DAC can drastically reduce this cost, which is essential to achieve our Paris Agreement goals. And we are a team with a combined experience over 200 years in membranes, and we are proud to take on this challenge with a mindset and ambition to be the top carbon capture company in the world. Together with our partners, we are currently designing and optimizing this unique technology, and we're planning to build a pilot plant at a capacity of 100 tons of CO2 per year in the UK. We would like to connect with our partners and end users to scale up the technology to full commercial scale. Our motto, let's dig up, instead of digging down, and build the smart DAC's wooden Roman watchtowers as a hydrogen wall against climate change. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Most interesting. So I'd like to invite everyone online to continue to submit questions. I will take one question from you for Mohammed. But first, over to judges for their questions. Francesca.
Yeah, fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. Learned a lot. I guess my question would be, what is your main limitation in terms of where the plants are based? Is it geographical because it's so dependent on wind and solar energy?
Yeah, actually, it's not more geographical. We work, the biggest limitation is just basically the availability of the wind. And for that, it depends on the location, because what happens is that if you think about it from a perspective of the technology itself, it's kind of a standalone monster. You just put it there, and you have actually, the steps are 2 steps. You have the first step, which is the absorption, and the second step is the regeneration. So the only power requirements is going to be for the regeneration. And the wind availability is what's actually determining the flow. But this is where we actually have the IP, and this is where innovation will take place, that we can actually, in areas where there is not a lot of energy, we're going to design the product in a way that we absorb as much wind as possible without using fans. And this is one of the interesting things of this technology. On the other hand, we can even use fans. If you put this smart DAC technology, okay, think about it as this vacuum cleaner or something. You put it in the middle of an area where there is a lot of solar. If you think about Middle East or, I don't know, Texas, where there's a lot of energy, so you can pay for these fans automatically by using a solar technology, a solar energy, and this is, I think, the combination we're talking about. So the only thing that we're thinking about is that how we can maximize the production, and the production already is automatically where you're gonna put it. And there is a lot of areas that you can think about where you can put the smart DAC technology and it can operate, because the wind is everywhere. And if you think about our history and our grandparents, where we came from, they've been traveling all over the planet using wind and using ships, and they're using sails for that. So there's a lot of areas where there's wind availability.
I'm now going to ask an audience question. How efficient is the membrane capture?
Yeah, the membrane capture, actually, we're talking about, if you saw the number that I was talking about, we're talking about the total emissions of UK is 468 million metric tons of CO2. And in 8,000 hours of continuous absorption, you can neutralize this. That means that you can separate completely the CO2 emissions of the United Kingdom in only 8,000 hours of operation. This is the assumptions we use in the calculation. So this is how efficient is the system of the separation. And what's interesting as well in this membrane is that if you look at the membrane absorption, it's not just for separation, it's kind of intensified contactor, where you have a lot of, you have intensified functions of absorption, and at the same time, intensified abilities of membrane. So you create a kind of a surface area where there is a lot of contact between the air and the CO2. So this is kind of innovative approach to maximize the contact area between the solvent that we're having on the other side and the CO2 absorption. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question from the judges, please.
Thank you very much for your presentation. 2 very quick questions, and you can choose which one you want to answer. Who is your potential client? So who would you be hoping to have working with you alongside your team in terms of adopting your solution and in terms of actually trialing your solution? The other question is, I'm trying to get a sense of the footprint of Smart DAC. How big is it? What is your starting size? How big is it?
Okay, I would like to start with the first question. So our clients, that's actually a really nice question, because if you think about the biggest hurdle actually, if you take one step back and you look at the whole value chain of carbon capture, okay, and carbon capture and utilization of the CO2 route, if you think about it like that. You have the first part, which is the CO2 capture, and the second part is the utilization, CCS, and all these technologies. There's a lot of technologies, and the limiting factor is that we don't have, until now, the biggest problem that's available in the world regarding these technologies is the availability of CO2 at low cost. And what Smart DAC is going to do is going to have a pure CO2 as a product. We're thinking, positioning ourselves as the biggest supplier of CO2 to all kind of applications. We can work with greenhouses, we can work with fizzy drinks, we can work with sequestration, we can even work on conversion with fuels, chemicals.
Sorry, Mohammed, we're going to have to.
Now
we're going to have to cut. Sorry, Mohammed, we're going to have to cut you off here. But thank you so much to Mohammed from CO2 Circular. We are now moving to Brayfoil, all the way from South Africa. Over to you.
Hi, thank you so much. We at Brayfoil are building the future of wind turbine blades, adaptive blades to make energy cheaper. Wind turbines are already one of the biggest sources of renewable energy and one of our cleanest paths to net zero. What if we could make that better? Sorry, I'm trying to click here. Perhaps the team can just check my clicker is enabled. There we go. Great. So the problem is that the biggest driver of performance in wind turbines is really size. So larger turbines are cheaper and more powerful per megawatt. And the reality is that if you double the wind turbine size, you're able to multiply its power by 3. So size is a major driver. However, the longer those blades get, the larger they get, the larger the forces on the devices and the heavier those blades are. So if you double the length of a blade, you have to cube its weight. This leads to large, high forces on the blades. It leads to slower pitching, which makes them unstable, less powerful in unstable winds, and it also leads to storm damage. What if we could address that problem by changing the shape of the blade intelligently to adapt to the wind conditions? That's what we've done. We've developed the world's first commercially viable morphing wing technology and applied it to wind turbines. It enables an actively shape-changing blade with a very simple mechanism, simple internal structure, and also a passive pitch variation, resulting in better outputs. What that means is that we can decrease operational loads by up to 24%. We can decrease unstable wind imbalances, so increasing performance in unstable winds by about 60%, and decreasing storm case loadings by about 90%. What this means together is that our tech can provide at least about a 13% blade length increase, relating to a 23% rated power increase, increasing annual output by 25%, and decreasing the cost of energy by 20%, all without increased structural strength at the root of the blades. What that means is that it makes wind turbines better and more efficient. If adopted between now and 2050, this has the potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 43 billion tons or 43 gigatons. And we've also been sure to align our research with current efforts in circular economy and recyclable blades to decrease the impact of wind turbines overall. Our vision is to become a technology supplier to a large global market. The wind turbine market is about $80 billion and growing quickly. And our revenue model is intended to license our IP and our patents to the wind turbine industry to incorporate into the next generation of devices. This market is split between 6 or 10 major players that are very competitively seeking new advantages to win the market. For our model of revenue of a royalty, we're looking at a $4 billion total available market. About 3.2 billion of that is serviceable. And for us, using a market share of about 20% in our royalty model, that means there's an obtainable market of about $640 million per annum. Right now, our biggest risks to manage is IP risk and building solid relationships, and we're doing that with technology vetting and customer discovery with major manufacturers. Our competition is focused on energy output and reliability and changing blade shape, with ACT blade being our biggest competitor, focusing on a 9.3% AEP increase. We're focusing on about a 25% AEP increase by changing the actual intrinsic nature of the blade. We have invested $3 million to date, and we've been incubated by a number of hubs, received grant funding, a part of Cleantech Open, and are a portfolio company of Catapult Oceans Fund out of Norway. Our status of our technology at the moment is that we have globally protected IP, functional prototypes, performance modeling, and CFD modeling, and we're busy completing dynamic modeling in our first pilot turbine, which is 24 meters high, at a university partner for completion by the middle of next year. I'm going to go quickly through this, but essentially, we're aiming to go to market in about 2025. One second. Great. Our team is made up of myself with an entrepreneurial background, engineers with experience in aeronautics and large-scale engineering, as well as an advisory team in both of those areas. Our ask is we'll be raising about $3 million in Q2 next year for scaling up our team and a runway of 3 years, developing sales and partnership pipelines, and building research partnerships and raising R&D grant and co-funding. So if anyone in the audience wants to get in touch with us regarding material science developments in composites or wind turbine research or any interaction with the wind turbine industry, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. So over to the judges, please.
Thank you so much, Matthew. That was fantastic. Just a question about retrofitting. So with the blades, because they go on to those sticks out in the sea, I don't know what to call them. Could they go on now? Could you just quite easily remove the classic blades and switch them with yours?
No. So what some of our competitors are going after retrofit as a strategy, and that is a possibility. But for us, we really see the benefit of our turbines being in incorporating them in the next generation of offshore turbines, the largest installations, rather than putting them onto smaller turbines where they have a lower impact. And the issues with overloading of blades is primarily a problem for the largest turbines. So for us, that's the focus. The offshore market's also growing at about 26-27% per annum over the next 5 years. So for us, it's a better proposition.
Thank you.
Hi, can I just ask how you calculated the 43 gigatons of carbon emission savings, please?
Sure. So it's based off of the simple emission reduction calculator from Clean Energy Ventures. They have a tool which we worked with them to calculate our emissions reduction potential with. And it's essentially focusing on full adoption by 2050, but going to market in 2025 and gradually moving across up through an S-curve of adoption over that period.
Matthew, can I ask why the first generation wind turbines haven't used this technology? Is there some engineering issue?
So the reduction of loadings and air elasticity in the blades is a focus for the industry at the moment. They're trying to find ways of incorporating that and using it effectively. The reason that hasn't really come through is that there's been no way of doing that without increasing complexity and weight to too much of an extent that decreases the overall performance and economics of the turbines. So they've gone with very simple structures instead. The real advance with our technology is really our patented morphing structure and morphing shape. It was born out of biomimicry, looking at the ways that birds' wings work and then applying that to aerostructures, and was meant for aircraft wings at first, but this is the best application area of it. And really that it's a technology which allows that without adding too much cost and weight.
And can you license the IP when it is used already in aircraft wings?
It's not used in aircraft wings. It's our IP that we own and we've generated, but it was initially intended for that purpose, but we haven't deployed it in that area, no.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have another question, if that's okay. The time and cost to create your blades versus the classic ones, I'm going to call them, is it comparable? Is it sufficient? Is it significantly more, or...?
So we're intending for it to be completely comparable. So we will change some elements of the pitching mechanism and we'll add some actuation in a key area of the blades, but the overall manufacturing process remains very much the same. So we're using the same materials, the same processes. We've tried to make it as easy as possible to integrate into blades.
Superb presentation. Interested by your figure of 25% better than current wind turbines. And I guess my key question is it conceivable that people could beat that by a further order of magnitude? Or do you feel this really is optimal when it comes to where wind turbines can get to?
Well, I have no doubt in human potential and what people can do. I'm not going to say it's not possible, but I think that at the moment that industry has been developing blades for the last 40 years and are really seeking 1 to 2% improvements in annual energy production. So for us, because we've come from a different industry and are looking at it from an aero perspective, we've completely reimagined the way that blades work and the way that wings can fly and change shape. And because of that, it can be a step change in the industry, but I wouldn't say that that's unsurmountable, no.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Very, very quick question. What is the indication that you currently have that the industry is ready for a 2025 launch?
So, blade length is reaching a limit at the moment. So blades are going up to 115 to 120 meters long and incredibly heavy structures. And we've been engaging with those manufacturers and looking at their research priorities. And the major research priority for them and research labs around the world is finding ways to reduce those edge loadings and those excessive loadings to be able to enable longer blades or better reliability. And The growth in that industry will necessitate that. There's a competitive advantage to anyone that can produce more energy from the same base and the same turbine. And the growth in the wind turbine industry over the next 5 years will mean that those manufacturers are looking for that competitive advantage.
Thank you, Matthew. Very much fascinating presentation. So we're now moving to Japan for PJPI. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Inketsu, CIO PJPI. Today I have brought you the most sustainable and powerful battery, a plant-based carbon batteries, Cambrian. Lithium rechargeable batteries are the foundation of our everyday life, but I'd like you to think about whether lithium-ion battery you use everyday life are actually sustainable. In fact, the production of EVs is 3 times more damaging to the environment and produces 68% more CO2 than internal combustion cars. The reason for this is because the conventional lithium-ion batteries contain rare metals such as cobalt, nickel, and manganese. These rare metals are also associated with various pollutions around the world and even child labor in Democratic Republic of Congo. The circular economy of lithium-ion batteries used in your smartphones and electric vehicles are simply not sustainable. We have a solution to all these problems. Our organic carbon battery do not rely on limited resources like rare metals and can even achieve carbon neutrality from production of batteries. How does it work? Based on more than a decade of joint research with Kyushu University in Japan, we invented a proprietary technology to convert any plants into carbon materials. Then we use this carbon material to make electrodes of batteries, and we mass produce these cells to make modules for our customers. The secret of our battery is our organic carbon has much larger surface area than graphite used in conventional lithium-ion batteries. And because of this, our battery does not have risk of explosion, and it does not deteriorate over time. That's why we can charge our application 10 times faster, and it has an expected life of more than 20 years. Compared to the state-of-the-art batteries like LTO and LFP, we have higher energy density than those batteries and are cheaper to produce. This shows the life cycle of our battery, and 1 cycle indicates 1 day of use of your battery. So at 8,000 times, which is more than 20 years of use, the capacity only lost 16%. The longer the battery lasts, the less battery required to produce, thus less CO2 would be emitted in the air while solving other depressing and urgent global issues. Based on our estimation of CO2 using the data of demand, life expectancy of batteries, and CO2 emissions from production of cobalt-based batteries, we estimated that we can reduce at least 1 million tons of CO2 next 10 years. We have already integrated our batteries into storages and mobilities, taking various projects in Japan, having revenue of more than $3 million USD, including renewable energy and sharing mobilities projects. We are experienced experts in the field. Our CEO has more than 30 years of experience as a serial entrepreneur, and he has been actually involved with helping children live better with the United Nations. In fact, PJPI was founded in 2017 with a vision to provide equal opportunities of energy to every child on this planet. Our research professor is the top researcher of lithium-ion batteries in Japan and a colleague of Dr. Yoshino, who won the Nobel Prize for lithium-ion battery in 2019. We are developing and completed prototype for dual carbon batteries that can achieve energy density of 390 watt-hour per kilogram, which is the highest energy density in the market and can revolutionize EVs and electric airplanes in the market. We plan to mass produce it within 2 to 3 years' time. Currently, we are running Series A, $6 million for mostly mass production of dual carbon battery. And for Series B, we plan to do next year. We will make our battery technology open source so that everybody who has relationship with us can make our batteries. After that, we are going to evolve to be an IoT-powered fintech energy company and become public in 2024. With our organic carbon battery together, we can realize the future where our lives do not depend on the children who sacrifice themselves to mine cobalt into the sea. Together, we can realize a world.
Right.
Yes,
I'm sorry, Nketsu, we're going to have to cut you off there, but thank you for a fascinating presentation. And now over to the judges for some questions, please. Julie.
Just a really quick one from me. Thank you very much for the presentation. It looks amazing, almost too good to be true. So I just wanted to ask why it's never been done before.
So basically, our proprietary technology is to convert any organic materials into carbon. This technology is only to us. That's why other competitors cannot copy us, and that's why it is only to us.
Thanks very much. What would you say was the most immediate large market where you see the potential for huge growth for this type of technology?
So we are seeing a lot of inquiries from storages. So for example, renewable energy. And we have a strategic partner who has 2 to 5 times more energy, the wind turbine that can make 2 to 5 times more energy than traditional wind turbine. And their problem is the storage. The storage cannot accept more than a lot of electricity, even if the wind turbine is making a lot of energy. But our battery can accept 10 times more electricity than conventional storage, and that's why they are interested. We have a strategic partnership with them because of that, because we can accept a lot of energy, they can make a lot of energy, so we can revolutionize the renewable energy industry together.
I've got a quick question. Thank you, so much for the presentation. I particularly like the fact that not only have you looked at the economic and environmental impact, but you've also looked at the social impact. I guess my question is, you talk about farming. How do you plan to manage and tackle the aspect of sustainable farming because of the water consumption aspects and biodiversity?
So actually, our plan is not to actually plant stuff. Our objective is to use the industrial waste created by the farming industry. For example, we can convert sugarcane into carbon, and sugarcane is actually paid to dispose in Japan, and we can recycle those to make batteries. So which means that we don't really need to plant, but we basically recycle those the waste made in those industry and make sustainable batteries. So that's why we we think that this is the most sustainable solution.
I'm going to jump in with an audience question here. What's the biggest barrier to funding and scale up?
So basically, we are actually right now doing funding, and most of the investors we talk to are in Japan, and most of them are more accustomed to the IT industry. So they are not really familiar with the manufacturing investment, and that's we are kind of feeling a bit. They think that okay, you are manufacturers, so kind of risky. And most of the investors in Japan, they just started to consider about environmental effect, but traditionally they don't really consider it as a important factor, and that's why we are currently doing it mainly in Japan, because of COVID-19, but we are trying to do it in global scale in next year.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I wanted to find out if the examples you showed were batteries made out of cotton or industrial waste.
Currently, our batteries are made of cotton because our CEO is a believer of a fair trade, where we do not basically purchase the product from by very cheap price in those local area. We chose organic carbon because we wanted to help the economy of Africa. But from the next batch, yes, we are going to use industrial waste.
And follow-up question very quickly. Can you tell me in volume how much cotton you used in one of the pictures that you showed? How much cotton did you actually?
Currently, I do not have that information, so I can get back to you. But currently, I don't have information. Sorry about that.
Okay. Any other questions for Inketsu? Thank you so much, Inketsu, for a fascinating presentation. So for our last pitch before our break, we are going to be moving from Japan back to the UK instantaneously in a very low carbon way, I must say. And we have Sail. Over to you.
Founder of Sail. Sail is the offshore delivery service. Today, my two next door neighbours and I all bought different products online. This weekend, I'm going to hire a van and a driver to pick up my parcel from the warehouse and bring it back to my home. On the same day, both my neighbours are hiring their own vans to pick up their parcels from the same warehouse and bring it back to them. This is a world without FedEx and DHL. It's inefficient, it's costly, it's complex, and it's very carbon intensive. But this is how marine logistics works today. Sail's customers don't need to hire their own boats. Instead, they tell Sail what they need, where they need it, and when they need it by. And Sail takes these orders from multiple customers and optimizes them on delivery boats managed by Sail. I'm going to use my daughter's toy boat here to tell you about some of the pain points in our industry. So this boat, taking cargo offshore, costs tens of thousands of dollars every day to hire. For some potential customers, marine logistics costs are over $500 million a year. On one voyage, this boat will deliver cargo for just one customer to their two offshore locations before returning back to port. On that voyage, its deck is 40% empty of cargo, 40%. It runs off diesel, and it spends quite a lot of time idle at a dock or on location just burning fuel. So there's the problem statement: complex, costly, carbon intensive. I'm here to talk about Sail as the solution. Sail is a digital business, and that's why we're pitching here at the Net Zero Technology Centre. We're using technology to reduce emissions in marine logistics, and we're getting after this in two phases. Phase one is digitization. We're building digital infrastructure or building blocks from start to finish across marine logistics. An example of one of these building blocks is sharing a vessel. So there's no longer a need for lots of paperwork, phone calls, manual processes. Customers log on to the Sail portal to book a delivery slot. And a second example, something I'm really excited about, marine safety. So digitally embedding our operating procedures to unlock big improvements in safety across the industry. Other examples might be vessel procurement, delivery management, tracking spend. I'm going to quote my colleague here and say, when you create these digital building blocks and combine them together, it unlocks an opportunity to innovate across the value chain and transform marine logistics into really simple steps for our customers. I absolutely love that. So what's the emissions impact of digitization? Well, the major source of emissions in marine logistics is from burning fuel. Here's my daughter's toy boat again to help illustrate the numbers. So each voyage this boat takes generates 50 tons of carbon emissions. If it does 100 trips in a year, that's 5,000 tons of CO2 equivalent for one boat. And just to put that in context, in 1 year, this boat emits the same amount as 9,000 lorry journeys from London to Glasgow. So by using Sail, we take these boats out of the water because the efficiency gains that we get through digital transformation, these gains allow us to reduce emissions in an offshore region by 30%. In the longer term, we think multiple sailboats in multiple regions will remove over 100,000 tons of CO2 equivalent emissions every year. And the important thing is that we think this 30% is achievable. It's just from digitization and just considering fuel emissions. But this isn't just about emissions reduction, it's about net zero. Sail's vision is of a net zero fleet. No more delivering with diesel. Which brings me to phase 2 for Sail, which is deploying physical technologies. So once digitization is up and running, Sail has simplified the world for our customers. Just like me and my neighbours are totally flexible on the vehicle that turns up with our parcels, for Sail customers, it won't matter whether the cargo turns up in a hydrogen-powered delivery boat or an aerial drone. At Sail, we've got experts in logistics, in marine, in digital, but we also have deployers of autonomous boats. My background is chemistry. I'm thinking about biofuels, hydrogen power, sustainability and circularity. Physical technology to drive us to net zero is part of our DNA at Sail. I've got 20 seconds here to conclude. So to say that we're speaking with oil and gas and offshore wind customers towards a pilot in early 2022, but right now we're seeking feedback, mentoring and piloting opportunities from potential customers and investors. The time is now to get that input to enable us to get to net zero in the fastest, most effective way.
Thank you, Saul, very much. Very interesting. Over to the judges for their questions, please.
Yeah, go first. Thank you so much for that presentation. I think your passion is infectious, and thank you to your daughter for her boat.
Thank you.
So the boats that you use at the moment are Sail-managed boats. Is that correct?
That's right. They will be chartered from vessel owners.
So what are your plans for the transition through to using biofuels, and that sort of, what does that transition look like if you're using kind of old stock at the moment, and is that set up to start using these alternative fuels?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question, and I think it's important to say, first of all, our business model lends itself to faster deployment of those technologies because it's not segmented. So individual operators aren't looking at how they can deploy this technology themselves. Through Sail, we absorb that complexity, so it really is just the technology turning up at the asset. I think in the primary case, you mentioned biofuels there, it's about influence, and we're talking with lubricant developers at the moment so that we can understand exactly those kind of dual fuel vessels and the fuels that are going into them at the front end so that we can influence at the kind of the vessel owner and at the marketing end of that kind of value chain. So it's absolutely influence at the moment, but it's important to say these dual fuel vessels are out there and they're charterable today.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you again for your presentation. What is the cost saving potentially to your clients? You know, in percentage. It doesn't have to be in pounds, but in percentage potentially.
Brilliant, and we've done an awful lot of work on this actually, and although it varies a little bit region on region, what we're targeting in the first instance is 10 to 15% cost savings, and that's because we change the model. In fact, we sell deck space rather than chartering vessels. But in reality, those efficiencies come from all over the place. It's not just about chartering the vessel, it's about the efficiency gains through your operations, not necessarily having marine logistics people deployed in a certain part of the business. So I think that the gains are much larger than that, but in answer to your question in the first place, 10 to 15% cost savings.
And what you're trying to do is make the vessels more efficient, correct, by digitization? Or the loads on the vessels more efficient, I should say.
That's it. I guess the vessel efficiency itself is all about kind of the operating conditions and then shifting to different modes of fuels. The efficiencies for us come from two places. That's utilization on the deck. So I mentioned that this boat here that's 40% empty, we can get way more efficient once we move to kind of 80-90% deck utilization. And the second factor is non-productive time. So all of that waiting time, as soon as you embed that into your schedule, we can remove a lot of that waste from the system.
And one from the audience. The oil and gas industry has existing technology for sharing helicopter trips. If they use this for supply vessel sharing, what unique IP do you have to protect your business?
Yeah, I think there's definitely lots of synergies. So we're looking at logistics across not just marine logistics, but as the question described there, aviation, also land transport and supply base. So there's lots of areas for growth of this model. I suppose the question for me is around kind of fast followers there and the unique position for Sail in this. And I think that That stems from sales independence. This is not a new problem, and there have been solutions already that have failed in this area. Sale, as an independent entity, selling deck space to operators offshore, whether that's offshore wind and oil and gas, is completely different to the vessel owners that have done this in the past, and also the consortia. So to use the analogy of me calling up my neighbours and saying, I ordered a parcel the other day, do you have that van going to the warehouse, can I use the spare deck space on there? And the contracts and the phone calls associated with that, that's all gone away now. It's a single point of contact into sale.
Okay. I just wanted to understand your go-to-market strategy a wee bit better. Is it direct to customers, or have you explored partnerships to get things moving quicker?
And a quick answer, please, Sol.
Partnerships are absolutely key. We talk about competitors, but a lot of our competitors are actually synergistic. So we're looking at people, at businesses that already have infrastructure digitally to bring together some of these components in marine logistics. We're looking at the vessel owners themselves. Partnerships are absolutely key to this.
Thank you. Great. Thanks so much to Saul, who's co-founder of SAIL. And we're now taking a 25-minute break, so we look forward to seeing you back in 25 minutes. Okay, welcome back everyone in the room and online. We've now got our next 5 pitches, so I hope you're all excited. I certainly am. And we're opening up with Sambita Factory from the US. Welcome. We can't hear you.
And that we come out of this with some renewed commitment for reversing climate change. It's my pleasure today to present Sambita, where we create nature-based solutions for the sustainable industries of the future. And one of those solutions is biomanufacturing of low carbon, zero carbon, or even carbon negative CO2-based chemicals. I'll share that with you, but before that, I wanted to spend a minute on the science behind this technology, which is synthetic biology. We all know microbes, right? Microbes are living things, so they eat something and they produce something. For example, they eat sugar, and they could produce alcohol like yeast does. Synthetic biology allows us to redesign microbes to have new capabilities, such as eating CO2 instead of sugar and producing other chemicals instead of just alcohol. It's pretty amazing. It's also a rapidly growing sector. And that means that the cost for synthetic biology is dropping really quickly. Kind of like what happened with DNA sequencing, where it used to cost millions of dollars. Now you could do it for about $200 for your dog, right? The promise of synthetic biology has already delivered. It used to be that we would take insulin from pancreas of pigs and dogs. We don't do that anymore. We make it in the lab by engineering E. coli, a very known microbe. This is also how impossible meat is made. We took the gene from soy plant and engineered it into yeast, and now we make hemoglobin in big fermenters to make the ground meat that's not really animal-based. Another industrial example is how we could use methane to make fish food. Sambita is using this exact same technology portfolio for turning microbes into a small advanced chemical plants that could also use CO2 as a feedstock. And in the process, we're going to utilize up to 1 gigaton of CO2 by 2050. Let me give you a tangible example. One of our clients wanted us to make ethylene from CO2. We all know about ethylene, right? It's the biggest organic molecule in the world. It goes pretty much into all polymers and plastics. And turns out bananas make ethylene in the ripening process. So we took the gene for ethylene from banana, engineered it into our microbes, which now make ethylene from CO2. And each of these plants for bioethylene at a scale could utilize 2 million tons of CO2 per year to produce 1 billion pounds of bioethylene per year at the same cost as the fossil fuel-based ethylene. When we scale the plants to take market share from ethylene, we could actually scale up to gigaton scale CO2 utilization per year by 2050. That's good news, but the better news is ethylene is just one of the projects that we're working on. We have identified about 30 other molecules that we could make from CO2 biologically and under ambient pressure and temperature through biomanufacturing. We're a multidisciplinary team of scientists, engineers who are passionate about reversing climate change by applying these scientific principles from biotechnology to process engineering to fermentation. But we can't do this alone. I'm here presenting because we're also looking for partners and collaborators. And also, as we expand our team, we're looking for passionate scientists, engineers, and business leaders to join us. We have a long ways to go to reverse climate change, but it's not too late. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Moji. That was great, really, really interesting. Now I'm going to hand over to the judges for their questions.
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you so much for your presentation. How long does a biomanufactured microbe survive for? Like, is there a limited time until it becomes redundant?
There is, because these are living things, right? But what we're doing in our company is, instead of using enzymes, which are like kind of catalysts, we use living microbes. So it's called cell-based method. And we have developed a continuous process. So as some of the microbes get towards the end of their life, where they're not producing as much, we cycle them out and we introduce new ones. So altogether, the process remains continuous.
And then a quick follow-up one. So the time it takes to engineer the microbe and the cost of doing that, is that comparable to sort of traditional methods of using fossil fuels to do a relatively similar thing?
It is actually, and in some cases it could even be lower. The time that it takes to engineer the microbe, it could be 6 months to 1 year. But as we all know, that's the problem is not that, is to scale that up. And in our company, this is really how we differentiate ourselves. Is we've developed this business model that we call microbes as a service, where we engineer the microbe and we work closely with the client to basically boil down the synthetic biology into chemical engineering and then into process engineering to give them an Aspen model, which is now the common language with any chemical company. And we have bioreactors from test tube size all the way to 1,000 liters, right to my left, where we basically scale up the process.
Perfect, thank you.
Hi there, thanks for the presentation. It sounds like the opportunities or the potential is huge. You speak about large market. I just wonder what the main challenges are to commercialising this.
So it's a scale up. Like it is with a lot of CO2 utilization technologies, there's nothing that's off the shelf right now, right? So that's why people are doing really carbon capture. So a scale up by itself, the challenges are how to build these large scale fermenters, applying the learnings from biofuel industry, from wastewater treatment industry. So we're working with EPCs to really address those challenges. There's more nuances, for example, if you use photosynthetic microbes, then you have to supply light as a source of energy, and scaling those up and making sure the source of electricity doesn't really, cancel out all the carbon savings that you gain by using CO2 as a feedstock. We're working in the spectrum. I mean, this is really hard, just to be clear, but it's worth it. So we're going to do our best to basically de-risk the technology systematically in the years to come.
Have you measured at all the impact this could have over 10, 15, 20 years?
Absolutely. I mean, what I shared with you, we're going after molecules that have huge market sizes, like ethylene, a lot of organic acids that go into polymers and plastics. The thing is, fossil fuels will not be used as fuels in the future through electrification, right? But we still need feedstocks to make chemicals. So we either have to use bio feedstocks or we have to figure out some other source of feedstock. We focus on using waste streams and starting from CO2 as a feedstock. So the ability to use CO2 as a feedstock with microbes, is the focus. And it could get actually to the 1 gigaton of CO2 utilized per year by 2050. So that's really the impact that we measure in terms of how much CO2 are we utilizing.
A question from the audience. Who are your key clients? And you've got 50 seconds to answer, please.
Sure, yeah, so it's a few categories. Oxy is one of those, Mitsubishi, Sumitomo, other chemical companies. And then we have, what I didn't talk about here today is the mining, the biomining part of what we do. BHP and other mining companies are also in the mix. The vision that we have is to find solutions in nature, but then apply new tools of technology to scale up those solutions so that we as humans could live in harmony with nature, basically.
Thank you. I think we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Moji. That was fascinating and a really interesting insight into what you're doing. Thank you. So we are now going to stay in the USA, and we're going to move to Syzygy Plasmonics. Over to you, Trevor. Sorry.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Trevor Best, and I am the CEO of Syzygy Plasmonics. To understand Syzygy, we need to take a step back and look at the entire chemical value chain. And what you'll see is that a few raw materials, petroleum, natural gas, and air, go on to create many things. Petroleum feeds the value chain for a class of chemicals called aromatics. Natural gas feeds the olefins value chain, as well as produces hydrogen for methanol and ammonia. These value chains go on to form the raw materials for everything you see around you right now. Raw materials for clothes, houses, cars, and so on. From this, there's one thing that you should know. First, combusting fossil fuel is what powers this entire chemical value chain. The combustion to produce all these molecules is responsible for more than a gigaton of carbon emissions every year. And the second thing you should know is that this is where Syzygy comes in. We are making a completely new type of chemical reactor. Our reactor eliminates the need to combust fossil fuels to power these reactions and replaces that combustion with light from LEDs and renewable electricity. We electrify chemical production and allow this industry to operate using renewable electricity. Eliminating emissions is great, but ultimately it comes down to cost. On the left, you can see a traditional thermal reactor. It operates by combusting fossil fuels to produce the high pressure and high temperature needed. But this also means that you have to build it out of extremely expensive materials. Because of the fossil fuel inputs, operating costs are going to increase as carbon pricing comes online. It's not looking good for them. In contrast, our reactor is shown on the right. At our reactor wall where the LEDs are, it is actually room temperature and atmospheric pressure, allowing us to build our reactor out of materials like aluminum, glass, and plastic, which are much lower. And finally, the operation is driven by renewable electricity, whose cost is trending strongly downward. Our technology is made possible by our breakthrough innovation, the world's most stable and active photocatalyst. Developed over 30 years at Rice University, it has been highly validated, being published in both Nature and multiple times, and winning us grants from the U.S. Department of Energy and National Science Foundation. Perhaps what is most interesting about our company is that we are a platform technology. This means that our science can be broadly applied to many different chemical reactions, and this is exactly what we're doing. I am pleased a fossil-free vision of that trillion-dollar value chain that our technology enables. Green blocks are reactions that we are actively working on today, and purple are long-term targets that will come into play after 2025. You will see on the left, we are starting by repurposing greenhouse gases as feedstocks. The two most potent greenhouse gases, CO2 and methane, feed the production of our primary molecules, hydrogen and CO. These feed the production of the secondary molecules, methanol and ammonia. And through these basic raw materials, we are able to plug into the foundation of the value chains that go into building everything that we talked about earlier. Chemical value chain aside, these basic molecules are also being targeted as the energy carriers and fuels of the future, which is an entirely separate trillion-dollar value chain. Here's the four reactions we're working on today. On the left, you can see our carbon negative pathways. Here, we're taking greenhouse gases of methane and CO2 and turning these into hydrogen and methanol. When combined processes together, the economics of the carbon negative hydrogen that is produced are especially good. On the right, you can see our zero carbon pathways based around ammonia, where we are both synthesizing ammonia and splitting it again to get the hydrogen back out. These reactions are both critical to the future ammonia value chain that's being set up around Asia as we speak. We have really incredible traction. Together with world-class investors, we have raised close to $40 million in capital. This includes leading strategic partners with whom we are working to bring our technology to market. Today, we're using our cash on hand to deploy a first-of-its-kind pilot plant that will begin operation next year. We have an amazing team that is making all this happen. Between my co-founder, Dr. Suman Kadiwada, and our incredible leadership team, we have the experience, the grit, and the know-how to bring this disruptive technology to market and achieve that fossil-free vision of the future. Our technology has the potential to eliminate gigatons of CO2. But if we want to change the world, then we're going to need help. We need investors who want to support cutting-edge clean tech, and we need customers who want to deploy clean hydrogen or CO2-consuming solutions. If you are either of these, then now is definitely the time to talk to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I'd love
Trevor.
to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Trevor. That was fascinating and really exciting. So over to the panel, please.
Fantastic, really inspirational, Trevor. Thank you. How commercially proven is the technology?
So a good way to assess where the technology is through what's called a technology readiness level. It's kind of like a 1 through 9 scale, with 9 being like, you know, fully commercial, like iPhone, you can go buy it anywhere. Right now we are at TRL 6, quickly approaching 7 early next year, which is basically a demonstration unit. This will be followed by a field trial, which we are anticipating for early 2023, mid 2023, and hit true commercialization, you know, that TRL 9 level in 2024 and beyond.
Thank you. And I'm always interested in the competition. I guess there'll be some other academics working on this in other universities and other businesses. Is there anyone that keeps you up at night?
So the field of photocatalysis has been around for quite a long time. Humanity has been trying to crack the code on using light to perform chemical reactions since the early 1970s, so about 5 decades. Our two co-founders, Professor Naomi Hollis and Professor Peter Nordlander, made a photocatalyst that is close to 1,000 times better than any other one in history. Their papers are cited very often, so there are a lot of people who have learned from them, but we are definitely the tip of the spear here. So while no one else in photocatalysis really keeps me up at night, I'm sure that we're getting a lot of people up at night.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you so much for the presentation. Literally, as soon as your face came up, I started smiling, and that's a big win in a pitch.
Thank you.
So the LEDs, let me get this right. The LEDs are powered by renewable energy at present. Is that correct?
So the LEDs, they don't really tell where the electricity comes from, but the plan is to power them with renewable electricity. So technology is great, you know, but really it's on the people behind it to make sure that you use it appropriately. And so it is the responsibility of our and our partners to make sure that we power our reactor with, you know, renewable electrons. And that is absolutely a part of our plan.
Perfect. Because I guess my follow-up question would be sort of pound for pound, LED versus heat. Do you get the same sort of return on the end product?
So there's a couple ways to look at that. Like I think the two big ones would be like cost and efficiency. Absolutely, we can achieve the same kind of efficiencies that you would achieve with combustion. So like you can get the same kind of products at with a similar plant using our technology. It's just switching combustion to renewable electricity. And from a cost standpoint, we actually enable a lower cost because our reactor doesn't need to operate at high temperatures. You know, being able to build it out of things like aluminum, glass, and plastic, and given the decreasing cost of the renewable inputs, we can not only achieve a cleaner product but a lower cost one as well.
So I've got a question perhaps from a physicist in the audience. What is the quantum efficiency of the carbon neutral and carbon negative examples that you've shown in the slides? We can't hear you, Trevor, but I did say you saying that was a fantastic question.
So for everyone in the audience, the quantum efficiency is a metric for basically how well we utilize the photons that are approaching our catalyst. And so I'm going to talk about it in two terms. One is at the light source and one is at the catalyst. So one of the hallmarks of our catalyst, it is a plasmonic metallic nanoparticle, is that near 100% quantum efficiency. The plasmonic nanoparticles pioneered by Professor Hollis and Nordlander are incredibly good at catching photons. It is a field effect. They can actually catch photons in a larger cross-section than themselves. If anyone is interested in this, I'm happy to send you, a book worth of scientific papers. The other side of this is the LEDs and how well we can turn electrons into photons. And those max out a little over 80%. So about 20% of the energy goes to heat and the other 80% go to photons. But of the photons we can deliver to our catalyst, the quantum efficiency is close to 100%.
Great. One very quick question.
Yes, I was going to say $40 million is a great head start. Is that going to get you close to TRL 9 or does that take you to 8 or 9?
You've got 10 seconds, Trevor.
We need help. People in the audience, your capital help us get there, and together we can punch climate change in the face. So we need to raise more capital next year. I would love to talk to anyone who's interested.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you very much. Great Q&A, great presentation. So we're now traveling south over the border to Mexico, and we have Geronimo from SDG Energy. Over to you, Geronimo.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. If this is the time to stop pretending and start doing, what I will share will ring a bell. Our solution switches large energy consumers to the fast lane towards energy digitization and efficiency. I am Geronimo Martinez, CEO and co-founder of SDG Energy, a Mexican startup obsessed with developing cloud-based efficiency services at scale. The problem represents an 18% operational cost reduction opportunity in the commercial and industrial sector. It can cut up to 40% of the emissions needed to reach climate goals, and companies need it at their fingertips. This problem is too naively obvious. The real problem is the speed, scale, and resources to get serious about it. That is why we focus on large multi-site companies. We build a customized energy utilization solution that delivers the base efficiency and detects the new opportunity. Meanwhile, a partnership to go big is confirmed. Then, we invest in replacing all inefficient critical equipment capable to yield high internal rates of return. Measure and share these upgrade savings, guaranteeing that the same output is delivered. Voila, we have enabled energy efficiency at scale. Our customers haven't put a quid into it. We share the sustainability achievements while aiming for the following efficiency in leveraging AI and connected assets. Energy Assistant is our solution. It is the digital layer enabling for this now and in the long run. It is a single, customized, value-based platform in which energy data is centralized and combined with business data and the relevant variables affecting energy intensity. It provides actionable insights and smart control in the same language as our customers' daily population. It is an end-to-end solution. So far paired with 4,000 of these devices and existing sources of information to create a single data repository of energy efficiency intelligence. Its timely approach toward end users is to provide what they need to know and act upon to keep their specific efficiency objectives always in reach.
Geronimo, sorry, could you stand a bit closer to the microphone, because we're struggling to hear everything you say. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. To say the least, it's inclusive. The planet is less polluted and our users are more conscious. Jobs are created and the most inefficient assets in the developing parts of the world are replaced. Our customers put traction in their net zero and ESG goals, reduce costs, and get company-wide results in a one-stop shop. Our investors tap into an exponential growth opportunity, a green investment with competitive returns in a recurring revenue model. For us, it's about focus, the speed of execution, and innovating to continue expanding by leveraging data, green depth, and our first mover advantage. 66% of our customers are global multi-site companies operating in net, and the journey with them is just starting. The total near-term pipeline is 7 times the current contracted value. In this first funding round, we asked for $5 million to be spent in the next 24 months, mainly extending our digitization mesh with top customers, further developing energy assistance, and investing in high internal rates of return, turnkey efficiency upgrades. We are working to close this round as we speak. Closing, if COP26 is about delivering, everything I have shared is connected to our commitment to mitigate 500,000 tons of CO2 by 2026. This is the result of the base efficiency delivered by our energy assistant platform, combined with replacing aging, inefficient efficient assets in the rooftops of the bank branches, restaurants, hotels, and retail stores in developing countries, but also in the floor plans of the industrial leaders wanting to switch into the fast lane to achieve net zero goals. This is why we should invest in this. Let's make a partnership to be on the fast lane to reach our common destination. Thank you.
Thank you, Geronimo. Fascinating. So, over to the judges, please, some questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I just wondered what the appetite is for the products that you are offering potential clients, I guess in where you are and potentially across South America, because I know some of the challenges include getting information off building users and building operators. So if you give me an idea of what the appetite is and some of the challenges that you are having to overcome.
Sure. I can tell you that it's really connected to the leadership of these companies. We started with real large restaurant operators that were looking for bottom line effects in the operational cost, but therefore they connected to sustainability goals. So if we focus on large multi-site companies with the right leadership or connected to ESG mandates, the appetite is important. We are currently working with the largest retailer, auto market, supermarket retailer in the planet, of course connected to real global ambitious goals to measure water and electricity. And of course, what they see in us is a one-stop shop. We provide the utilization layer, and then we can start building up goals. So I think the appetite requires leadership and requires targeting the right customer.
So a question from the audience. How can you compete with players like Accenture or Siemens in the solutions you offer?
The Accenture alumni. And I can tell you that there are two axes in the competitive matrix that we see. One is flexibility and affordability. And of course, we are in the top of that axis in terms of flexibility and affordability. So doing this from Mexico to any country in the world, it has a competitive edge, not only on the cost, but also in the talent, in the geographical location that we have. So we have that edge. If we go to these brands that you mentioned, affordability is not one of the selling points. The other side is hardware versus software. And I think we tend to be in the middle. Right? So if you go to a Siemens, it's more tending to be on the hardware side, it's an OEM, and we try to be in the middle and combine everything that is out there and integrate it to get the job done.
Thank you. Any other?
Yeah, I was just going to ask for a simple practical example of what Energy Assistant does.
Of course. Let me give you an example of 590 commercial distribution vehicles, or last mile distribution vehicles for the largest baking company in the planet. They are extending their fleet over 1,000 vehicles per year. What we do for them through Energy Assistant is to monitor every charging cycle of these vehicles and control the process to hedge on, of course, the cheapest time of the electricity tariffs. So if the vehicles come to the distribution center, start charging without only responding to the end of the route, it will cost a lot. So we hedge a 40% cost by controlling. But how you can confirm that every car is charged, or you cannot put in risk the next day of sales, right? So we provide an interaction that is custom-made, not only for the sales guy, the maintenance guy in the distribution center, but also to the corporate guy. They receive alerts, they see the charging cycles are complete, they understand what is going on in their own language. It's not SDG Energy Assistant, it's a black box. It is something that has a lot of algorithms and standard ways of seeing and interacting with data that has to speak the business with our customers.
questions from the...
Just a quick one. I'd like to ask what have been your main learnings to date?
Main learnings. I can tell you that, well, it might be very, cliche, but talent is everything. That's why my team is here. That's why we believe from Mexico we can actually crack the energy cloud-based efficiency services to impact customers all over. So this learning curve to get the right talent connected to the right purpose and to the right ambitions is a key process. Also going to a smaller, you can say, customers or large customers without the vision takes our sales cycle to the side. So I think connected the vision and the timely opportunity that we have with large customers and having the right team, it has took us 5 years to understand that. Now our traction shows what we can do at a larger scale.
Thank you so much, Geronimo. Thank you for explaining to us your fascinating solution. Great. So we're now moving across the Atlantic, and we now come to Francis at Carnot Engines. Over to you, Francis.
Thanks, Mark. Hello to everyone. I'm Francis Lemp, one of the co-founders of Carnot, and I'd like to first start off with taking everyone back to 1824, when the famous Monsieur Nicolas Carnot first worked out that the maximum theoretical efficiency engines could achieve was 85%. Now, if we fast forward 200 years, the average efficiencies engines are achieving is less than half of that. So I'd like to introduce everyone to our technology, which will bring this up to a game-changing 70% efficiency. So the global transition to net zero means that we need to start radically rethinking the way that we are generating, consuming, and storing energy. There are currently no production-ready alternatives for engines for the largest and longest range applications, such as trucks, ships, and generators. So we have invented an engine that goes further, cleaner, and smarter. And by operating on hydrogen and biofuels, could revolutionize some of the most challenging industries to decarbonize. So what is the key issue with modern engines, and why on earth are they so inefficient? Well, modern engines will waste, on average, 1/3 of fuel energy to cooling systems, which stop metallic components from melting. We're developing engines with key components manufactured from ceramics, able to withstand fuel combustion temperatures, eliminating the need for cooling systems and doubling efficiencies. Carnot engines will halve fuel costs and can reduce the total cost of ownership by an average of 35% across our markets. Crucially, however, our vision is to drive our target markets to net zero emissions through mass adoption of our clean engines. In order to facilitate this transition, our engines will also be able to operate on hydrocarbons, halving emissions along the way. Transitioning to net zero will be achieved by simply swapping out the fuel system to run on hydrogen and biofuels. So the entire transport sector is responsible for 24% of global CO2 emissions, totaling roughly 8 billion tons of CO2 per year. And more than 3/4 of this comes directly from road vehicles. Now, our key target markets are road freight, shipping, and primary power generation. We can help transition a huge portion of the transport industry to net zero and have the potential to reduce global CO2 emissions by a whopping 10%. Now, we've assembled a Formula One derived team capable of an extremely high pace of development, going from concept to prototype in under a year, unprecedented in this industry. Since launching in 2019, we've been awarded over £900,000 in government grant funding, including 2 Innovate UK projects and a Eureka Eurostars project, raised over 1 million in pre-seed and seed funding, won a place on the UK Oil and Gas Technology Centre for Net Zero, filed our international PCT and UK patents, formed key strategic relationships, including with Fraunhofer, the world's leading research institute on ceramics, identified key low barrier market entry points for pilot testing through our customer validation. And these include off-grid power generation for the sub-Saharan African market and the mining sector, and marine vessel auxiliary power units. And finally, we have secured 2 funded industry partnerships in the marine and mining sector, and further expressions of interest from an OEM, a mini-grid developer, and a genset manufacturer. So we have a 5-year, 3-phase exit strategy, and we are currently approaching our first key milestone of running a prototype this year. To access our target markets, we will form development partnerships with industrial players to whom we will license our IP. Carnot will develop the core technology while our partners will handle manufacturing, sales, and distribution. We aim to form early-stage R&D partnerships with potential end users over the next 6 months to initiate pilot-scale trials and demonstrate the technology demand directly to the OEMs. We are now looking for industry partners and strategic investors to go with our next phase of development, and we'll be opening our next round of funding of 5 million of March next year. Join us on our journey to move further, cleaner, and smarter. I really appreciate the time to present, and look forward to any questions.
Thank you, Francis. That was great. And can I remind the audience to keep the questions coming in, please? Over to you, judges.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. It sounds like you've been really busy over the last couple of years. I just wondered if you could explain a little bit more about what your IP means or what the IP covers.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm obviously not going to give away our secrets on a platform like this, but it's worth mentioning that people have tried to do ceramic engines before, and we're not trying to patent the use of ceramics in an engine. Our technology involves purely around enabling technologies that allow the ceramic to work. So it's things like how we deal with differential thermal expansion, it's how we deal with coatings, and how we deal with removing things like traditional oil systems and enable fuel injection to work for hydrogen and biofuels.
Thank you.
And does this mean a completely different design for the engine? Does this, because I'm guessing obviously there'd be influencing factors, you know, your casings might change. What does this actually mean for the outside, or, you know, the components, and, you know, where you drill the rivets and whatever it is that you put in? What does this mean?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. Yeah, it's a fundamental redesign of the engine. And essentially the reason why our ceramic engine works and previous one haven't is that we've fundamentally redesigned the engine to work for the ceramics material. So we've completely stripped it back and come up with new ways of manufacturing components, new ways of operating the hot components. And fundamentally, because of the higher temperatures, we've had to eliminate traditional oil systems, traditional piston rings. So yeah, it's a fundamental redesign, but there are various components downstream of the heat that can still be manufactured by traditional engine supply chains, engine OEMs, which is a big bonus factor to our risk of commercialization. Is a lot of these OEMs can use their existing supply chain to supply a lot of the parts of the engine and keep their current engine markets afloat.
I think I have a question that kind of segues on from that. So is the ongoing maintenance of a ceramic-based engine higher or lower than a classic metallic one? And also, is the wear and tear quicker on ceramics?
So that is a good question, actually. So in terms of the operating costs, and that comes into the total cost of ownership, because we've had to remove a lot of the traditional oiling systems and the cooling system itself, there are less moving parts in our engine when compared to an equivalent sized state-of-the-art engine, which means that there are potentially less things that can fail. So from a maintenance point of view, and you'll see if when you talk to operators, cooling systems are actually a big cause of failure, a big cause of downtime. Fundamentally, from our engine performance modeling, Actually, it's the metallic components like the crank and the camshaft that are predicted to fail before the ceramic ones. So the ceramic components, from a wear and tear point of view, actually have higher durability and a longer potential operating life than what would be the sort of traditional state-of-the-art engine.
Thank you.
Do you see electric being competition in the future?
So obviously, I'm sure there's some Tesla fans in the audience, but we are not worried about electric being a sort of major competitor, especially for the markets we're going for, because we're very much targeting not passenger vehicles, but large and long-range vehicles, where if you want to electrify them, you're going to ask operators and end users to give up substantial chunks of their payload to accommodate a battery that fits their operation. And when we talk about sustainable innovation, it's also very important that we provide end users and the industry with solutions that are also economically sustainable for them. So for us, we're very much targeting those ones that don't have any options, for which battery is just not an option for them. And there's something to be said, we're not knocking batteries. We could even look downstream at providing a range extender Carnot engine to a battery pack for something like a mid-range HGV.
Thank you. One very quick last question, anyone?
Have you enjoyed this process of coming up with something incredibly bonkers potentially as well?
Well, I've forgotten how to sleep, that's for sure. But yeah, it's been a very interesting experience starting my first company and working with my co-founders. And yeah, still very excited on a day-to-day basis to bring this technology to market.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you very much. That's fascinating. So we now come to our final pitch. We move down to sunny Spain, and we have Solatum, and we have Raul. Welcome, Raul.
Hello. Hello. So my name is Raul, and I am the co-founder of Solatum. So what I'm coming here to say is that half of the energy consumed worldwide is basically in the form of heat. And renewable energy alternatives, such as PV and wind, are rather designed for electricity generation. However, concentrated solar energy is cost-effective and proven technology which can help reduce the consumption of fossil fuels and reduce the energy bill in the industry. We have alternatives such as biomass, but there are really not that many that can produce heat. Now, natural gas is clean, but it is not the final solution. So Solatum has designed modular and transportable solar power plants that can produce heat for the industry. Now, this is what the International Energy Agency says. It's half of the energy worldwide, as I said in the beginning. Now, why do I say that there are not that many alternatives? Because 3/4 of this energy production is basically non-renewable. And even of the part that is not coming from fossil fuels, it is just biomass, causing deforestation. And only 10% is coming from renewable energies. But a very low percentage is from, so a high percentage of that is sustainable bioenergy. Now, policies, there are not that many policies in place worldwide, but we need to develop something for renewable energy heat. We have a lot of companies such as Nike, Unilever, Nestlé, Coca-Cola, Heineken, but they have no solution for renewable heat generation. What can we use? Concentrated solar power, which tracks the sun with mirrors that concentrate the heat into a tube receiver, thereby providing high temperature steam and high pressure steam. Now, traditional plants, what they use is massive plants, but this cannot be effective for electricity generation, as they have to produce steam to move a turbine to at the end produce electricity. That is why we, by connecting directly the solar plants to the industry, we avoid the waste of 2/3 of the energy wasted. We do so by connecting it with traditional gas boilers so that we can provide heat 24/7 and we provide no interference in the industry's energy demand. There are several ways we can connect these industries. But there is only one way in which renewable heat can be generated, as flat plate collectors basically don't produce heat. Renewable electricity is basically too expensive, and concentrated solar power is really the option to go. Industries which demand heat are a lot. We have food, we have beverage, we have paper industry, we have textile, we have chemical, we have plastic. All of these demand heat, which can be produced in the range of 30 to 300 degrees with concentrated solar power technology. Solatum, backed by Enagás, BP Ventures, and Ship2B, is decarbonizing the renewable energy heat generation with a completely modular and transportable design, which can produce hot water, steam, hot air, and it can be installed rather in the floor, or it can be installed in the rooftops, or it can be transported. We produce it in LF20 modules, which have an efficiency of over 60%. These can also be transported in standard shipping containers, and that allow us to produce everything in a centralized factory, testing it, and only thereafter shipping it. This has allowed us to have already 9 references installed in Spain, as I said, producing hot air, oil, steam, or pressurized water. We have been mentioned in several newspapers, and we do a 5-step approach to expand internationally, doing a pre-assembly study, build the plan, have a pilot, being able to test it, and then setting up a local assembly line in the country. We have also developed to study the business case of developed software in which with basic data, we get the detailed energy solution. We have examples of tea factories in Kenya with an attractive payback period, with a 2-step process of 2 pilots to demonstrate the viability of the plant, and a 5-year payback period obtained. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. That was really, really good to hear about those CSP plants. And can we hear from the judges now, please?
Yeah, I mean, well, you finished bang on 5 minutes, so well done. My question was, so, I mean, you spoke about a plant that you've got in Kenya. Is what you do largely dictated by season, by availability of light? Or no,
so that particular example is of a tea plant. They are using the heat for drying. They currently are burning a lot of wood to produce that heat. And what we have done is a very detailed business plan to see what is the payback period using concentrated solar energy for that heat production, taking into consideration what is the cost of the land, the cost of collection of the wood, the cost of burning it, and how this solar plant fits into that particular tea factory.
Understood. So what would your kind of primary target audience be, or the sector that you would feel has the most potential for this technology?
Industries consuming heat in the range of 100 to 300 degrees, which are industries such as the tea industry, food and beverage, textile industry, such as Nike, and the chemical industry. All of them consume huge amounts of heat, and that's why they would demand concentrated solar power technology.
How defensible is your technology? And I guess leading on from that, how do you think you really scale to be a huge business?
So the key to scale we have. Okay, I think it stopped somewhere.
Yeah, you're back. The key to scaling, and then we lost you.
Okay, thank you. I will repeat again then the answer. So the key is the centralized production process with a fully automized process, and we partner in different countries to be able to produce different assembly lines to provide these plants to the industries. So in Spain, we have partnered with a big engineering company where we provide these modules to the different projects we've had in Spain. And the idea is replicate this in the different countries Because we have a centralized factory, these modules are thereafter shipped to the different industries where this heat is demanded in the country.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm interested in the engineering of the solution. So would you say to hit the temperatures that you require in a typical beverage setup, for example, would you use your product as a preheat and then use a typical solution, or you're able to hit those temperatures with your standalone product?
Thank you. Thank you for asking that. So the preheat is only a very small part of the energy consumption in the industries, because most of the heat is consumed for steam generation, which is why flat plate collectors cannot be used as a solution for the industry, whereas we are more than capable to reach the temperatures of the industries I mentioned by concentrating the solar energy and producing temperatures of up to 350 degrees, which is way above of the typical industry's demand of up to 200 degrees or 180 and 10 bar pressure. Cement industry, which demands 1500 degrees, is an industry we're not able to target indeed, but that's why we are focusing on other industries.
So you can't use the solar to generate electricity to produce the heat?
We could, by producing steam which moves the turbine. We know, however, that we are not competitive with PV. PV is more efficient and cost-effective for electricity, and that's very important, which is the reason why we don't target the electricity generation market. But on the other hand, PV or renewable energy electricity or non-renewable energy electricity cannot be efficient or cost-effective for heat generation, because it's a much more valuable cost of energy, which should not be wasted for heat production.
Thank you, Raul. Sorry, thank you. We're now out of time, Raul, but thank you so much. That was great to hear from you. So we've now been through all 10 startups, and I think you'll agree it was fascinating to hear from them. It was inspiring, exciting technologies and solutions, and all with potential to help accelerate the transition to net zero, which is, of course, why we're here in Glasgow. We're hoping that the politicians are doing their bit a couple of miles that way, I think, as we speak. So we are now going to take another break, a 30-minute break, and we hope to see you all back then. Thank you. So I'd like to welcome you all back here in the room and all over the world for the announcement of the winner, the second and third place startups. So I'm excited. I hope you are all really excited too. And I'm very pleased to hand over to Martin Gilbert, who's chair of the judging panel, who will say some words and announce the winner.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I first start off by saying, obviously, we're here in Glasgow for COP26, which is a massive event globally, and it's great that we're able to hold this event here during COP26. I think also it's been great for NZTC to have the collaboration with the 9 other like-minded organizations globally. So it's been a very successful couple of days. I would also just like to thank, if I can get my iPhone, this is a 9, isn't it? 9 out of 9, I think, my iPhone here, but which doesn't work. Can I also just thank the judges for their questions and their intelligent questions, actually, by the way, so that was great. Can I just say that I thought today reflected just how important new technologies are if we're ever going to get to net zero. And I think we just saw that in the high quality of presentations we saw. How many did we have? 29 when we first started. We had 3,500 people voted. We got down to 10 very great presentations, and we had a really, really difficult job actually getting to our top 3. In fact, we could have probably chosen any of 6 to 10 of them in the top 3. So I would just like to congratulate those that aren't sadly in the top 3 for the brilliant presentations they made. So without saying any more, shall we go and dictate the winners? Right, so in third place, this was another, as I say, a very, very difficult decision, with Syzygy Plasmonics in third place.
Woo, thank you so much.
It's good to see a company without any vowels in it, by the way, like Aberdeen, but they've renamed my old company. You've got to clearly have a name with no vowels in it to get anywhere. So let's go on to second place now. We had a very difficult decision here between second and first. So again, my congratulations and also commiserations to second place. But we in the end, came unanimously to PJPI Limited.
Thank you.
And then let's go on to first place for the winner. Again, many, many congratulations to the winner, MCI. The technology has worked. Congratulations. Would you like to say a few words?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Oh, it's such an honor. Thank you very much. I can't believe it. I've just come out of Australia where we've been locked down and we've been building this technology for 8 years, and to have this is just a really strong encouragement for the team that are back in Australia still working. So thank you very much. It's a real honor.
They're in bed, I said, rather than working at the moment with Australian time. So thank you very much, and congratulations again to all the top 3 and all the other companies that presented today. As I said, the only way we're going to get to net zero is by technology. So it's very, very encouraging set of presentations today.
Thank you, Martin. And I would, Martin, thank the other 4 judges, and I would like to thank you, Martin, for chairing the judging panel and for your words just now. So thank you to Martin and all the judges who've given their time for free, who've made it up to Glasgow. So thanks so much. A round of applause, please. So that brings us towards the end of this pitch battle. I hope you found it as exciting and uplifting as I have. It's been a really fantastic afternoon. And the good news is that we have another event tomorrow. We have our Global Technology Summit at 12 o'clock tomorrow. So please come and attend in person or dial in. And the conversation continues for the 10 finalists, for the 3 top companies, but all the other finalists, and indeed the remaining 19 companies. Lots of investors were in the room today, many more online. We also had industry also watching. So we would love, it doesn't stop here, we would love this conversation to keep going. We hope that all 10 of the finalists get what they want. They're often looking for investment, or they're looking for new customers. We really hope that this is the start of the journey for them, and they can continue to commercialize and save emissions. We don't need just 10, we need 100, we need thousands of these startups. But we do have 29 really, really exciting startups with fantastic technologies, extraordinary ambition, passion. They've got it. They really have. And so what I would like to say to everyone listening is to please get in touch with us, get in touch with me. You can find me on LinkedIn, Mark Anderson. And we'd be very happy to put you in touch with the startups and continue their journey. So thank you very much, everyone. It's been a really uplifting day. I think you'll all agree. And thanks again, and we'll see you very soon.